Hi guys, Luke Dunkin here, and I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite techniques, really a year-round technique, but something I really lean on in the summertime, and that's a drop shot, just a simple drop shot rig. Easy technique to learn to fish, and an easy technique to catch fish on when you need a bite, but it also catches big ones. So super simple setup in that I'm using a anywhere from a #1 size Trocar by Eagle Claw drop shot hook, and I'll go up to a 1/0 depending on what size bait I'm using. A little finesse worm like this, like a Zoom Z3 swamp crawler, I'm going to use a #1, and I like to nose hook it. That's going to come through brush really well, keep you from getting hung up. The leader is really important depending on water clarity. Okay, so like right now it's summertime. We're on the Tennessee River here, so I'm using a shorter leader because the water's got a green tint to it. It's not as clear. When I'm up north smallmouth fishing, I may go to a longer leader, like a 24-inch or something. Then you get into weight. So I'm using, this is just a standard lead laser sharp by Eagle Claw drop shot weight. This is about a 3/16. I normally start there. If I'm fishing shallower, I'll go to say an 1/8 ounce, maybe even a 1/16 if I'm fishing really shallow, which has become a technique that a lot of guys are utilizing fishing drop shot shallow around boat docks and different things when fishing gets tough. But in the summertime, if I'm fishing say 10 out to 20 feet, I'm going to go to that 3/16 weight. It's good in the current. It gets down there, kind of a finesse presentation. Now, something else that a drop shot is very good for, if you're keyed in on your electronics, especially in the summer, this also works in the fall, it can work in the pre-spawn. When you see a fish on your graph, you can drop vertically on him with this drop shot. Spotted bass, especially smallmouth, they really key in on this thing when you drop on it when you see them. But you can catch largemouth off ledges in the summertime too. In that case, if I'm seeing a lot like that, I'll go to a bigger weight, a 1/4 ounce. If I'm up north, I'll even go to a 3/8 or a 1/2, something that'll really fall in there quickly, depending on the depth and where I'm seeing the fish. But it's a very versatile technique that can get bites, like I said, shallow or deep, year round. Very versatile. All right, let's talk about colors. I like to use this as a morning dawn. Really good on spotted bass, smallmouth especially, and largemouth will eat it in a little dirtier water. When my water's clearing up a lot, I go with your standard green pumpkin a lot, a green pumpkin green. And in the summertime, for whatever reason, and this is just an old school thing that I've always done, I'll go to a red bug color a lot. This is a worm I also throw on a shaky head too, but we'll drop shot this. And I don't know if it's got more to do with, bass feed on bluegill a lot this time of year, so that red bug color really works in the summertime. You can see it's just a little lighter than a June bug. If I'm in Florida or something, I'll throw June bug a good bit. But basically, colors, I'm pretty simple. And then you can tell I like the straight tail worms. I like the action it gets when you got that nose hook and you're shaking that thing. That little tail will just shake. And to me, when you use a curly tail, it's really hard to get the action out of it like you will on a standard Texas rig with a drop shot. That's why I tend to go with a straight. I'll also use a fluke style bait some, a minnow imitator. I use that up north on smallmouth a lot, a little Super Fluke Junior or an actual original fluke by Zoom. Use that a lot to drop on smallmouth. So something along those lines. There's also a Z3, a Z drop by Zoom that I use, just a little bitty, it's more of a goby style bait. If I'm up north, I'll go to that on smallmouth. There are two different style weights that I really utilize in my drop shot fishing, and the first would be a cylinder style weight. And this comes into play if you're fishing an area that is really rocky, okay, really hangy. It will tend to slide through there a little easier. And if you're fishing up north, you may have a little sand grass or different kind of grasses. That will slide through that grass a little bit better. My #1 go-to most of the time, if I'm fishing gravel or, like I said, vertically dropping on fish, is a round ball style. Of course, I like the weights that have what I call the quick clip. You slide your line in there and it wedges. I will tie a simple overhand knot over that to hold it in place, so that's just a tip. Even if you do have these have a really nice design where you can slide the line up in there, but sometimes on a long cast or you get excited and you sling one out there, they will come off. So make sure and they do make drop shot weights that you tie to, but these are a lot quicker and easier to slide the line up and then tie a simple overhand knot. But two styles there, cylinder and a round ball. So the most typical way I rig my worms is just a nose hook, and so I'm just taking my little drop shot hook, and it's just as it says, you're just rigging that in the nose. And what that does, when you shake that drop shot, you can see just right here the action you're going to get with that little worm as you move the rod tip. It doesn't take a lot of movement to impart a lot of action. So basically, the technique you're going to use on a drop shot 90% of the time is less is more. That's my opinion. So I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to always make sure it falls on a slack line, because sometimes they're going to hit it on the way to the bottom, right? So then when I get it down there, I'm going to eat, and this is if I'm making a long cast, not vertically dropping it, and I'm just going to pick it up almost like you're jig fishing, but just barely pick it up and just ease it back to the boat, but always letting it fall on a slack line. And then I like to just shake the rod tip, and what I'm doing right there is with that nose hook, that weight's on the bottom, so your worm's up above it and the tail's just sticking straight out. And when they're down there, they're a little finicky, they'll swim right up to it. And when you get a bite on a drop shot, I mean, a lot of people want to just set the hook like crazy, like you're jig fishing, but all I do with that nose hook is I'm just going to simply lean into one, keep pressure on him, and 9 out of 10 times, I promise you, that hook's going to be right in the roof of his mouth. You don't have to set the hook like crazy. Just ease into them. Just ease into them. That's the, and a lot of times you're fishing on a light line, so you don't want to go to, you know, snatching like crazy, but that's the deal. Just throw it out there, let it fall, always let it fall on a slack line. Watch your line as it falls, watch your line as you pick it up, but every time that you get a bite, just lean into them. My setup for drop shotting is really simple. So I use a Skeet Reese drop shot rod. How easy is that? By Eagle Claw Wright McGill. And this rod is going to give you a medium fast tip, okay? So for lighter line, you can see there, you're going to get a lot of cushion with that. If you get a big one next to the boat and he pulls you down, using a Skeet Reese reel on that as well by Wright McGill. It's got a really smooth drag, which I think is really important. A huge key for me is I use 10-pound braid, so a really light braid, and I like to use a visible braid like a white braid, or I use yellows and greens. I'll tie that. This is 7-pound line. I like a 7-pound fluorocarbon. Just join that up with a knot, and that's it. With that light line, man, you can bomb that thing out there. But it's really critical when you're vertically dropping on them that bait will fall down in there, because you've only got a second or two when you see them on that Garmin to get it down there to them, okay? So I like that lighter line. It also helps you feel if the wind's blowing. It's a direct shot between you and the fish. When you're using that braid, the fluoro, you got the ultimate sensitivity. But I like that light rod. All I do, like I said, just pull into them. You don't have to set the hook like you're trying to break their necks. These hooks are super sharp. With the braid, you don't have any stretch. You can get it right in there. But that's it. Just go get you a medium, you know, medium action, medium light action rod. I like it. This is actually a 7.3. So I get a lot of control over a fish, especially a big fish or a big smallmouth that's going to surge at the boat, big spotted bass. I really like this rod for that. That's all you need. Super simple. All right, so you can tell a drop shot is not as hard as it looks. It's a super simple technique from beginners all the way to experts. Rig you one up on a spinning rod and go catch more and bigger bass when the bite gets tough. I promise you you'll get bit. This is Luke Dunkin. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to check it out. See you soon.